I gotta say, to this day, Hiccup Horrendous Haddock III might just be my favorite disabled protagonist in media. I mean, Edward Elric's also up there, but Hiccup is my son and I love him. This is one of those pleasant, rare circumstances where, when taking a closer look at the disability rep, I actually come away with more positives than negatives. How to Train Your Dragon is already an amazing series that I love to death, and beyond, this is just the cherry on top. So let's start with the obvious. How to Train Your Dragon is one of the very few series where we have multiple disabled protagonists, alongside disabled supporting characters. From the word go, we get the impression that Berk is the kind of place that cares for its disabled population. Granted, the vast majority of them are amputees on account of, the dragons, so there's not a lot of variety to be seen, but still. Though, realistically, I think they'd probably end up with more, or at least some people with burns and chronic pain and restricted movement because of those burns, but close enough, I guess. It's not like we meet the entirety of Berk's population anyway, there could be several burn victims hiding in the woodwork. The point is, barely a minute into the film, we meet Gobber, and he's obviously a well-respected member of the community, along with having his prosthetics made to his liking. Granted, that's because he's the blacksmith, so he's the one in charge of making them, but still. As for Toothless, and yes, I am damn well going to count Toothless, he becomes disabled, obviously, because Hiccup shot him down and accidentally tore off half of his tail fin. This is, for good reason, treated as not a good thing. But wait, you might say, I've given media shit before for depicting becoming disabled as something horrendous from which you can never recover. Why is this so different? Well, it's because they didn't do that. They rightfully showed Toothless being distressed about his inability to fly, and portrayed it as a not good side effect of Hiccup shooting him down, which was also not a good thing to do. But that's all they did. There's no moping or moaning, there's no whining about, oh you poor thing, such a tragedy. Hiccup gets down to business trying to figure out how to provide Toothless with a prosthetic, and that's that. Toothless is disabled, and it's no more notable than the fact that Astrid's favored weapon is an axe. But that's easy enough. People don't really tend to have the same reactions to disabled animals as they do humans, except for those few lovely folks who insist that the only humane thing to do with a three-legged puppy is to euthanize it. Yeah, I hate those people too. Where this movie really shines is in Hiccup's newly acquired leg. When, at the end of the movie, Hiccup survives, and Stoic is thanking Toothless for bringing him back, we get this delightful exchange.
Thank you for saving my son.
Well, most of them.
They make a joke. Gobber, specifically, makes a joke. It's a light-hearted moment of relief because, sure, Hiccup might be down a leg now, but he's alive. Which is a really depressing thing to be this happy about, but when you've seen enough media tell you you'd be better off dead, you tend to get a little desperate. Then there's the scene where Hiccup wakes up. Now, the obvious complaint here is the one I will never let go in regards to this whole franchise, which is just, people don't sleep with their prosthetics on. That's not a thing. But other than that, to me, this moment feels like it was written in the best possible way. He's shocked, a little unsure, and obviously unsteady on his feet as he takes his first steps on his new leg, but Toothless is there to help him, and he walks out into the light of a new day and his dream come true. Now, this might not be realistic to most people who wake up having suddenly lost a limb, but I have no trouble believing this reaction from someone who was raised in a society where disabled people are not ostracized or thought of as lesser, and they're accommodated to the best of the community's ability. Besides, the end of the movie is triumphant on all parts. The Red Death is dead, Berk has accepted dragons, and Stoic and Hiccup have gotten to a new level of understanding. It really wouldn't have fit the tone if they'd tried to pull any kind of this is irreparably awful shit. Now, before we get into any of the things I want to mention in the sequels, I do have to take a quick dip into the animated series. The first one, the Cartoon Network show, made the very odd decision to act like Hiccup's prosthetic is superglued to his body. I've mentioned this before in a past video, but at one point Meatlug becomes magnetic and legitimately pulls him up into the sky by his leg, which is not how that would work. Conversely, the Netflix show seemed to want to make it clear they understood that from day one, given we see Hiccup's leg come off in, like, episode 1, I think.
How far do you think he's gonna get before he realizes?
Hard to say. He seemed pretty committed.
The Netflix show also added the lovely detail of noting that he has several legs and that they can and do break and need maintenance, which is one of those little touches that I just really appreciate. Alright, so moving on. The second movie continues the wonderful tradition of making Hiccup's disability seem completely normal, because it is. His introduction to his mother includes this joke.
You just had to make it even, so peg leg.
And she doesn't even bat an eye at his missing leg. Honestly, she was more distressed about Toothless's missing fin, which makes sense given she thought Drago was behind it, and also dragons aren't known for surviving long in the wild with damaged wings. Given all this positive handling of disability, even when they introduce a disabled villain, it's just fantastic. Drago is missing an arm. We don't know this for most of the movie because he hides it under his cloak. But when he tries to use this for a big dramatic reveal about how he really knows dragons and the destruction they bring, he, predictably, doesn't get a big reaction. He tried to get things to trip into disability ruined my life territory. Okay, so really, dragons ruined my life, and part of that is this disability, but still. And the plot just flat out refused to follow along. It's great. I love it. The third movie doesn't really do much of anything with Hiccup's disability. That doesn't mean that they ignore it, not by a long shot. He's still disabled, it's acknowledged, it's not shied away from, it's relevant when it's relevant, and it's not when it's not. Which is exactly the kind of thing I love to see, because How to Train Your Dragon isn't a story about disability. It's a story that happens to focus on disabled characters, and that's just how it is. It's not hidden, it's not written around, it's just there. Though, I don't know about you, but I'm not in the habit of letting my dog play with my mobility aids. I mean, to each their own, I suppose, but that was specifically one of the things we very much discouraged her from doing when she first arrived home. Though, granted, Toothless is a lot smarter than your average dog or cat, so I guess you can make the argument that it's a different situation. But obviously a big chunk of the plot revolves around Toothless being able to fly independently and Hiccup making that possible for him, and then eventually letting him go, which is less about disability and more almost an allegory for parenthood. I mean, we have Hiccup literally acting like a worried dad while Toothless is on his date with the Light Fury, so I don't even feel like I'm off base with that one. So, in summary, in the world of How to Train Your Dragon, disability is accommodated for to the best of people's abilities. The writing team know that you can actually successfully make disability jokes so long as you're, not punching down at a marginalized community, and Hiccup is one of the best disabled protagonists to date. I do wish they'd managed to work in some references to the pain Hiccup's gotta be dealing with, especially in bad weather. Not even anything big, just like a wince and rubbing at his leg when a storm's rolling in. No, that's not a myth. I may not be an amputee, but I do have chronic migraines and a surgery scar that both like to remind me when the air pressure's low. But that's really such a very tiny nitpick about a series I otherwise adore, so I'll let it be. Thanks for watching this video. If you liked it, consider liking it and maybe subscribing. I will be back here Thursday after next. Bye!